And hey, you found us. Welcome back. It's Chambers, Changes, and Conversations, the podcast where we take you behind the scenes of the people, projects, and public servants shaping life here in Manatee County. I'm Communications Division Manager Casey Zempel, along with our Director of Government Relations. She is Stephanie Garrison. And today we're talking about the cornerstone of life as a public servant, and the one thing that connects every service, every decision, and every citizen. And that thing is trust. Trust that your voice counts, that your ballot is secure and counted, and that democracy is in good hands. And the person that makes sure that happens right here in Manatee County just so happens to be our guest today. Supervisor of Elections Scott Farrington has managed more than 75 elections, holds degrees in information systems, and has spent more than 2 decades ensuring that our elections are secure, transparent, and trusted. And today, we're diving into what that all means, what happens when it's not election season, and why your local elections office is one of the most technologically advanced operations in government. Scott Farrington, welcome to Chambers, Changes, and Conversations.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So let's start at the top, sir. Supervisor of Elections, it's one of those titles that sounds simple until you try to explain it. And I'll admit, I picture somebody, at our polls with a clipboard in one hand, a counter in the other, clicking away how many people are coming in. But it's a lot more than that. Can you explain to our listeners exactly what the office does?
Sure. So the Supervisor of Elections office, it's a constitutional office, which means the Florida Constitution lays out that this office must exist, the position must exist. There's 67 counties, there's 67 supervisors of elections. And I will point out that every state does this differently, and I believe that Florida is the only state that calls it a supervisor of elections. A lot of other states call it clerks or have election boards or things like that. But the responsibility of my office is anything elections related. It includes tracking voters, voter registration. Of course, we get poll workers. We train poll workers. We get polling places. We do everything that the public sees and thinks about regarding elections. But we do some stuff that you don't think about, including candidates. We're required to track candidates, do the finance, not do the finance, but do the compliance, mm-hmm. Make sure that they are doing their reports and all of that. We have equipment that goes along with it. We have to maintain that equipment. We have to purchase it and all of that type of thing. And then, of course, there's a lot of public education
mm-hmm.
and just getting awareness and all of that goes with that as well.
Very interesting. So, I think it's a lot of people's thought that elections offices are like Santa's workshop. They're busy during the season and they shut down until next Christmas. But your team really never stops. You're constantly preparing for the next cycle. So walk us through some of the biggest responsibilities that are happening now between elections.
Yeah, and I frequently joke that one of the most common questions I get is, what do you do the rest of the time? What do you do the other 364 days? And we are busy all the time. Obviously, we're in a business that's very cyclical, and right now our cycle is on the downside. But we're still, we keep busy. Voter registration is what keeps us the most busy. Is you can imagine, people don't stop turning 18 even when there's elections. People, as we know, keep moving into Manatee County, and some even move out of Manatee County. But we have to track all of that so that we can keep our voter registration rolls accurate all of the time. You can't just wait until an election comes and try and hope that you can make it accurate. You got to track that all the way through.
I recently got to hear you speak at an audience that I was a part of, and I really liked your story about Ohio. If you could tell us that again.
Sure. So it's funny, I haven't heard it called the Ohio story before, but so most people in Manatee County and Florida, we're a very transient state. We have a lot of, I'm going to guess no one in this room was born in Florida.
We got one.
Yeah. Okay. Most people, 1 out of 4, 25%, that's probably pretty representative of the county as a whole. So most people came from someplace else. When you moved down from Indiana, Ohio, New York, wherever it was, the first thought on your mind wasn't, I need to make sure and let them know that I'm not a voter up there anymore. Generally speaking, the first thought on your mind is not, I need to register here either. And the reason it's called the Ohio story, or you're thinking of it as the Ohio story, is because I always there's someone in this room from Ohio.
And sure enough,
there's always someone. And I've always picked Ohio because I don't know why. And it hasn't failed me. I think it would fail me in this room.
Probably not outside this floor, though.
Right. Yeah.
So tell me that. So people not letting their former residents know, hey, I no longer live here. We have that same challenge. So what is our local office doing to vet and make sure that the people who were previously registered are no longer on the books, if you will?
So there's a couple ways that happens. The first and primary way is when you move to Florida, one of the things you're supposed to do, and most people do pretty quickly, is get a driver's license. As part of that activity, they're required, and they ask you, do you want to register to vote or update your registration? And by doing that, it lets us know, especially if you do it through DMV, because one of the checks they do is they see, did you have a license someplace else? Because in order to get a Florida license, you either have to go through the testing process or you have to provide proof that you were, had a driver's license someplace else. So that lets us know where you came from so that we can let them know. So that's one of the main ways that we track people and track it back to their origin.
So we do that.
We do that.
So you tell in Ohio, hey,
yep.
they don't live here no.
Yeah, and by it goes through a system, and the state sends information out to all the other states depending on where you originally came from. The other way we do it is through the post office. So going back to that story, when you moved down to Florida, your first thought was not, I need to register to vote. I need to make sure they know that I'm not registered up there. But one of your first thoughts probably was, I need to make sure I get my mail. And so you let the post office know through a forwarding, or a forwarding address or order to forward your mail or something like that. We will compare our database to their database and see where we have discrepancies. And most of the time we can figure out why you've moved from this place to that place, and we can take care of that. And if we have questions, we send letters, and that whole process is called list maintenance. We're required to do that by law at least yearly, and we do it more often. There's different pieces of it we're constantly doing.
That's great. So walk me through some stats for the general public may not know, in terms of number of registered voters or percent of people here in Manatee County that are registered and vote.
So the last number I heard was population of Manatee County was estimated around 450,000. We currently have approximately 280,000 registered voters. So that is... And obviously, of that 450,000, that's everybody. That's kids, babies, all the way through. So they're not all eligible to be registered. Getting a hold of a number of how many people are eligible to be registered and actually are registered is a little tricky. There's some estimation in that. We're around 80 to 85% registered of everybody that's eligible.
Wow, and actual participation, how do we track?
Participation. So the last election, the 2024 general election, was a big election. I think you probably remember it. Manatee County had an 82% turnout.
Wow. Tell us, how does that compare across Florida and nationally?
It's across Florida. It was top 5, I believe. I'd have to go back and look.
Wow.
Top 5 of the counties, 67 counties. It was one of the highest, maybe the highest in Manatee County percentage-wise that we've ever had. It was very high. Having said that, the turnout in Florida for that election was above average to begin with. So, and then nationwide, Florida generally does better than most, not all. There's a component to size to it, right? Florida is the 3rd largest population state. So, you get smaller states, it's easier to get a higher percentage.
Sure. And you've been doing this a long time. So maybe walk us through some of the trends.
Remind me how old I am.
Yeah.
No, since you were a young lad, clearly. But walk us through some of the trends, because I find it so fascinating what's happening with the vote by mail, especially compared to a decade ago. I think the data you shared with me was starting in 2012 election and the changes we've seen through then.
So I did start in 2000. That's when I started in elections, was June of 2000.
Also a great year for an election.
It was a big year. So to talk about kind of the differences in elections I've seen, in 2000, I started as a temp in Sarasota County in their elections office in June of 2000. In 2000, we had 4 countywide elections between June and November.
Holy cow.
Yeah, they had a special school board millage election. They had a first primary, a second primary. Back then, you had 2 primary elections, and then the general. And so it was July, September, October, and November. You had almost an election every month. You can't really do that practically, logistically anymore. Things have changed a bit. And 2000 was a milestone election for a lot of reasons, but one of them was the recount in Florida caused a lot of law changes, a lot of evaluation of the current laws, how things were done. There was a huge study done, and it led to a lot of changes. One of the changes was the way we vote, or the options you have for voting. In 2000 and previous, you could either vote at the polls, which is the way most people did, or you could do an absentee ballot. Only about 10% of people did an absentee ballot because then you had to have an excuse to get an absentee ballot. You had to be sick or in the hospital or away.
Not just anyone.
You couldn't just call up. After the 2000 election and those law changes, they changed it to what they called no excuse absentee. So starting in 2002, anybody that was registered in Florida could request an absentee ballot. They also started what they called early voting. Early voting is a period of time before Election Day, ranging from 8 to 14 days, that you can go to a designated early voting site. Any voter in the county can go to one of these early voting sites and vote up to 2 weeks ahead of the election. And then there's also, of course, the precincts on Election Day. So that started in 2002 as well.
All those changes stemmed from the 2000 election?
Yes, they did. So those 2 things started the first time in 2002, and with minimal change. Most people were very used to going on Election Day, so most people still did. I don't remember the percentages, but from 2002 up until I think the slide you saw went to 2012, which is, I picked that and was Manatee County only because I started in 2013 in Manatee County. So looking over the last decade plus, how has it changed? From 2002 to 2012, approximately 8 to 10% people voted absentee or vote by mail in 2002. In 2012, it was 30%. 30% of the voters that voted absentee or vote by mail. And just so you know, around 2006, everybody was like, what is this no excuse absentee? That makes no sense. The terminology just doesn't even make sense. So in statute, they changed it to vote by mail. So in Florida, if you say absentee or vote by mail, they mean the same thing. We've tried to get away from the term absentee just to avoid the confusion. But so vote by mail, in 2012, 30% of the people voted by mail. Still about, I think it was around 15 or 20% voted early. And then Election Day, the rest, around 50% of the people were voting
still coming in
on Election Day. Now, if you fast forward to last year, 2024, it was still around 30% voted by mail. It was around 31, 32% voted by mail. Around 45% of the people voted early.
Wow.
So that left between 20 and 25% of the people that voted went to the polls on Election Day in 2024. And that trend, it's been going consistently that way. As a matter of fact, in 2020, it was down to 18, 19% of the people that voted on Election Day. And obviously 2020 with COVID, it kind of impacted that as well. So if you think about it, in 2024, by the time you got to Election Day, 75% of the people that were going to vote had already voted.
Wow.
I would have thought that the vote by mail option would have been the part that saw the steady increase, but it's the early voting that
So vote by mail has seen steady increase from 2002. It's kind of plateaued.
Yeah.
It was going up, but vote by mail has been up and down in the media,
Sure.
and there's I mean, even right now, depending on who you talk to in the Republican Party, some people are all for it and some people are all against it. So that has definitely affected the number of vote-by-mail ballots.
Gotcha.
I have to ask, because I'm genuinely curious, when you vote, do you vote early? Or do you get to vote early? Or
you vote
do
on
you...
the
Or do you just vote because you're there?
Right.
You know you're going to be there that day, so do you just get in line like the rest of us?
So I have voted at my polling place once in my entire life. And that was when I turned 18. It was before I was in elections. I turned 18 shortly before turned 18 in July, and the election, was later that year. So I voted at the precinct that time. By the time I was 21, I was working in elections, and you can't vote at the precinct and still work in the office.
Right.
It's just not possible. Since then, I have traded off between voting by mail and early voting. We have an early voting site in our office, and that's honestly how I usually do it. I just pick a day that
you're going to do
and
it.
I keep watching the line, and it's when it's low, I just
You
go
jump
and
in.
I go do it. And
Yeah. What would you say, to folks who maybe they themselves recently turned 18 or about to turn 18, or maybe they're the parent of a newly 18-year-old or soon to be 18-year-old like Casey, not too far away. Mm-hmm. What would you tell them about the importance to register to vote early?
Well, if you have waited till you're 18 to register, you're probably behind the curve already. In Florida, you're allowed to pre-register when you turn 16.
I didn't know that.
And the reason that changed 2006-ish, it changed because you can get your driver's license when you turn 16. And they wanted to tie those together order to make it more automatic. So you get your driver's license at the same time you can pre-register. Obviously, you can't vote until you turn 18, but you can pre-register. So taking your question back a little bit, it is not a secret that lower ages, 18 to 25, are the lowest turnout voters, have been. I mean, I used to think it was a generational thing, but it's not. Because the turnout of 18 to 25-year-olds 20 years ago is the same as the turnout 18 to 25-year-olds today. It's more a process of aging and growing up and becoming civically minded. And the ones that we found that do consider voting important at 18, it's because of their parents.
Yeah.
It's and a lot of times it's because of their mothers, honestly. It's I don't know. You just
they're the ones driving the household to make those.
I can't prove it. I mean, there's no real statistics I could point to say that, but just anecdotally, you hear the stories. It's always the mom saying, "You better go to the polls. You better get your ballot." And making sure. And it's partly because the moms take care of their kids, right, and all things.
And I have to say, shout out to our local election folks, because I've always taken my children with me when I vote in person. I don't vote by mail, probably just because we've made it so easy to vote in person in multiple ways, early voting. And I look at that as a teaching opportunity.
Absolutely.
And I bring them with me and I show them the ballot and I show them that, it's about votes. It's about counting. They get excited about counting the vote. They like feeding it into the machine and that kind
sticker.
of thing.
Don't
and
forget the sticker.
Gotta get the sticker.
Oh, and we have the best sticker. Last year's sticker, shout out to whoever designed that. I loved that Manatee sticker.
So I'm glad you brought that up. We started 2022, I think it was. We do a contest for the sticker.
Yeah.
And this last one was designed by a high school student at a Manatee High through Boys and Girls Club. And
it was awesome.
And we're going to do it again, probably starting around January. We'll push that out to all the high schools and
Very cool.
What other sort of outreach things you do in working with maybe even the school district just to get kids familiarized? Stephanie talked about it a little bit, bringing them into the actual polling place. What do you guys do as far as outreach is concerned for students?
For students, so we will go into the high schools and we'll talk to, they don't really do civics classes in high school. That's more middle school, but we go into the middle schools and we'll talk to them as well. And we go to the high schools and do voter outreach along with registration drives. The Big Bang Theory, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. We always make sure we have a table there so that if you're not familiar with the Big Bang is, it's kind of like the game of life when you were a kid in like full blown. But this, we like to say, this is the one thing that's real in this game. When you register here, it's real. So we do that and we get there. The other thing that we do that isn't used as much as I would like, we have what we call student poll workers. So by law, as long as you're pre-registered to vote, you can be a poll worker. So we will, usually it's seniors, sometimes juniors, we will engage them, try and get them to be poll workers for us for the election.
Community service hours, I'm assuming then too? Or?
They get paid and community.
Oh, wow.
So they get 3 or 4 hours of community service for the training, and then they get paid for the day.
That's awesome.
And they get, of course, there's paperwork that has to go along with that. Their parents have to, sign off on it, and they have to get teachers to sign off on it. But
so from education to, making sure that we've got, people represented that are coming into the state, leaving the state, you obviously have a lot of things to do when it's not election season. Another big portion of that, I'm assuming, is cybersecurity, right? Social media rumors, cyber threats, alleged voter fraud. Election security is a big deal. What kind of things are you guys doing to safeguard so residents and citizens know that their vote counts on election day? Yeah,
cybersecurity has become an important topic that in 2000 no one thought about, right? Honestly, it wasn't a thing, and it really didn't become a huge thing for us. And by huge, I mean it was always something, but it wasn't as focused until about 2016. And so there's two parts to our office, right? Or two parts to our technical system. You've got the voting system, and then you've got everything else, the voter registration system, our website, stuff like that. And I make that distinction because our voting system is not online. So there is security. There's a lot of security concerns and things that we put in place. But I just want to make it very clear that it isn't online. So there isn't that vulnerability, the cyber vulnerability of someone hacking into our voting equipment and changing results. There's physical security that we do because we don't want people getting to it and tampering with it. But just wanted to make that very clear that voting side, separate. Voter registration, all of that, there is online components. As a matter of fact, you can register to be a voter online, and that's a state system, and it talks to our system. We have a voter registration database, all of that. So the security concerns are top priority there as well, and of course there's all of the technical security that goes around that. But the primary, and I'm guessing you probably heard this, the primary security threat is always your people, right? It's the social engineering aspect of it. Someone calls and says, I'm IT for the county and you need to give me your password. So that we do training on that constantly.
Does that happen?
Not like physically calling, but we get phishing emails all the time saying they're from one of our vendors or something like that, and saying, "Hey, we've seen this issue. You need to hurry up." And
there's always a rush, right?
It's always a rush. Yeah. So the training, the personnel training is hugely important on that, and then the awareness and talking about social media. That's an area that is. It's a problem for everybody because you can't control what goes on to it, and you can't control what people see or think or hear. And so that the only thing that we can do is make sure that when you go to a website or you read something, it's from a trusted source. And of course, we think we're the only trusted source. So if you have a question, you have a concern, you see something, you're not sure, call us. Go to our website. Make sure that you're talking to the people that know.
Yeah. Election integrity is a big issue. It was a huge topic for both 2020, 2024. I expect next 2026 it to be another big issue and thing on people's mind. What would you tell folks in our county who are worried about votes, maybe counting votes that aren't actually genuine, dead people voting, that kind of thing, or double counting votes? How would you assure someone about our election integrity here in Manatee County?
So election integrity is one of those terms that gets thrown around, and it's an important item. But how do you prove that it's
honest
real
election?
And honest? Yeah. And the only way I know to give people confidence in that is transparency, right? If you have a question, come ask us. If you want to see something, we're going to show it to you. Most everything we do, counting ballots, it's public. We had Holmes Beach is having an election next Tuesday. We had what we call a logic and accuracy test yesterday. It's open to the public. Anybody can come, watch, see how we prepare the equipment, test the equipment, make sure it's ready. We talked about vote by mails. I showed them vote by mails that we had issues with and how we were going to deal with it and all of that. And so I think, honestly, understanding how the process works, asking the questions is the only way that you're going to get people to feel comfortable with it.
And you touched on it a little bit with the logic and accuracy testing. So that's part of like the auditing process. Can you tell us a little bit more about that audit process pre and post-election?
Sure. So by law, we're required to test all the equipment before the election, and we do that. Again, Holmes Beach, it's a small election. It's one precinct. It's 2,500 voters, something around those sizes. So it's easy to see. We had one election day tabulator. We had two vote by mail tabulators. So very small, compact. But before the election, weeks ago, we went through all that equipment. We tested it. We made sure that it was working properly. The batteries were charged. The screen was responsive, all of that kind of stuff. And then yesterday, we have what's called a public test where we repeat that for the public. Anybody that wants to see it can come and observe, see how we test it, see what we do.
Do you usually have people show up to watch?
Very rarely.
Yeah. Okay.
In 2024, there was a little more interest in it. We had there was a few people that came and watched. But smaller elections and ones that don't get a huge amount of attention, we don't get a ton of people that come and watch. And that's where I'm saying, if you have concerns and issues, show up, ask. Right. We're gonna be as transparent as we can with you. So anyway, so that's the pre-side where we take all the machines and we test it. And the simplest way to explain how we test it is we create a test deck of ballots and we run an election. The only difference between this test election and the real election is we know exactly what the results should be because we created all the ballots and we make sure the machines are counting correctly. And so we do that. That was done yesterday. The election will be held on Tuesday. And then there's the post-audit, after the election. And so there's two types of post-audits. The ones that we've traditionally always done is a manual audit where a sampling of the ballots, a percentage of the ballots are hand counted. We have teams, they go through the ballots and they hand count a race to make sure that what the machine said the result was is what we find the result to be. This will be the first election we're using in what's called an independent automatic audit system, which basically is it's a second set of tabulators or scanners. We run all of the ballots through one set that gives us our results for election day and election night, and then we run them through a separate set that verifies that these counted correctly.
Gotcha. And any discrepancies would be dealt with, and then you guys would go back and probably have to, if you did find something, have to go back and kind of recount maybe even a larger sample then, or?
Yes. Yes and no. We don't go back and count them. We figure out what the discrepancy is. And honestly, most of the times you get a discrepancy, it's because someone, I'm sure you guys remember Scantron tests where you're filling the bubble. And when you're taking those tests and you're serious about it, you were serious about making sure that bubble was filled in and it didn't go outside.
Yeah,
and you didn't.
That's right.
Well, I wish people were that careful about marking their ballot. And so most of the times we get a discrepancy is because someone did a check, right? And that check kind of
Don't
goes.
do checks.
Yeah, or an X or something like that. And one scanner sees it, but the other one doesn't. So there's that. That's usually where the discrepancies come in, and we'll go and we'll find it and we'll figure it out. And so far, I've never seen a discrepancy that wasn't explainable.
That's good. So, some of this has to deal with technology and just having the best technology. Our board recently approved new machines for the Supervisor of Elections office. What can these new machines do, or what kind of enhancements are you excited about now that you've got this new technology coming?
All right. So, first, you're right. You're absolutely right. I went to the board and I asked for money and the approval to buy new tabulators. And these tabulators are primarily the election day tabulators that you'll see in the precincts and early voting sites, but it's also for the vote by mail. Where they're going to be a huge advantage to us, there's two main reasons. First, it's the same process. For the voter, most voters wouldn't even notice the difference. They're going to get the ballot that looks the same. They're going to fill in that bubble very, very carefully.
No checks.
The same way.
No check marks.
And then they're going to put it into a tabulator that's going to count those marks. So for most voters, they wouldn't notice a difference. For us, our current system, our current equipment is a little over 11 years old. And it's showing its age. I like to think about it. If you have an iPhone from 11 years ago and you tried to use it, you would be really disappointed in it. If you could even get it to turn on.
Sure.
So we're seeing that they're slowing down. When they do break, we're having harder times getting parts and repair, getting it repaired, things like that. The new ones, they have some features for us that will help us keep it secure in the future. One of the things, security is a weird thing, right? You want to make sure it's secure, but I want to make sure it's not just secure today. I want to make sure it's secure 10 years from now. And the security concerns that we have today were not the security concerns we had 10 years ago. And so this equipment doesn't have some of the capabilities to make sure that new threats that are starting to be a possibility we can protect against. I know that sounds kind of vague, but
but it's true.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you anticipate a threat that you've never seen before?
Right.
You've got to, I'm assuming, have some idea, a general trend or direction that these types of threats are coming from.
Right. And then the biggest one that the voters might see is they read the ballots a little faster. So on Election Day in 2024, there was some slowdowns in a few precincts because it takes it a couple of seconds to read that ballot. These are about twice as fast, so hopefully we can get some voters through a little quicker.
Yeah. But by the way, I will say, even though it was a long line, because I voted on Election Day, I was one of those weirdos, I guess, that haven't gotten
one of the 20%.
Last year, I voted on. I don't know. I just felt it was the right time to do it, and wanted to be a part of it. But I will say, even though there was a long line, it was very smooth, and I did not wait very long.
Where'd you go? I was at Braden River.
I was at Oasis Church in Lakewood Ranch.
All right, yeah.
And it was very smooth, and I was actually most proud of my fellow neighbors who were just waiting patiently, and it was a very civil, calm morning. Yeah. It was unremarkable in terms of everybody's there. There were kids there, and it was people participating in their civic duty, and there was no ruckus. There was no, even though last election was pretty, I would say, emotional for a lot of people. It was a very smooth experience. So kudos to our residents.
Yeah,
and our poll workers too. I mean, those guys. They're working a long day, and it doesn't end when we leave the polling booth.
That's right.
It just keeps
Absolutely,
going.
It doesn't. I mean, they're required to be there at 6 a.m. in the morning. And they're not allowed to leave until the last voter has voted.
Wow.
And they've closed everything down. So for that election, it was most of them left between 9 and 10 p.m.
Yeah, it's a long day.
It's a very long day.
So you've had a career in elections, which is an unusual specialty, right? I mean, you don't meet very many people who specialize in elections, and you have a background in information systems, which I must have been, did you have the foresight to know that would be such a like appropriate thing, especially and now we're 2026 about to be, where this matters more than ever?
No, I had no foresight in that. That wasn't on my mind. I honestly, I got into elections by accident. I mean, there's no other way to put it. When I was a kid, I went off to school for computer science in the other side of the state. was there for 2 years, ran out of money, came back home to live with mom and dad and to recoup some money. And I had a little bit of credit card debt, and so I needed a job. And so I went to Kelly Temp Agency. And the first placement I got was in the Sarasota County Elections Office. That was the first placement. And so that was, like I said, June of 2000. And I worked as a temp through 2000 and then still needed a job after that. So they hired me on in January of 2001. And I was still going. I had kind of built up a little bit of money. I started going back to school. I went to Manatee Community College at the time, now State College of Florida, got my AA, and then I went to USF. And quite honestly, during that time frame, I wasn't thinking I'm going to be Supervisor of Elections. I was thinking this is a pretty good job to go to school with. And I was always just assuming that once I got my degree, I'd start looking around. But I just kept going and kind of moving up in the office and really enjoying it and liking the work and the people and the civic responsibility and so it kind of led into it. It wasn't something that I went into thinking about.
And how do you think that background in information systems kind of sets you up for a rewarding career in Supervisor of Elections or in the elections office?
Sure. So as we've talked, technology has become a huge part of elections. It wasn't in 2000. I mean, there was technology there, but it wasn't the focus. It was other stuff. But because of the new technology and that punch cards got
the hanging chads,
all of that, they got put aside for. When I was in Sarasota, we had touchscreens, and then those got put aside for what everybody in Florida uses: optical scan, bubble in the ballot. So that whole process became much more technical. And prior to 2006, if you registered to vote in Manatee County and then moved to any other county, you weren't registered anymore. It was a by-county thing. In 2006, the Florida voter registration system was implemented, so that at least if you were registered in the state, you were registered in the state. Now, if you move to another state, you got to re-register. It hasn't gone national yet. So that whole infrastructure got built starting again around 2005. It was starting to be built. 2006, it took place, and so. Even the technology at the precinct. It used to be when you walked into a polls, you'd show your ID and they would flip through this book looking for you, and then you would sign on a line.
Gosh.
And now, so it has become part of everything. It's become part of all of our lives, but it's definitely in elections as well.
Now, you are an elected official, so you've run for office yourself and were successful in that office. What do you say to the voters who didn't vote for you, or perhaps voters from a different party, to assure them that you treat this fair and without partisan politics?
So to directly answer your question, I don't know who voted for me and who didn't vote for me, and I don't really care who, and I don't ask. But I will, anecdotally, I will say no one comes up and said, I didn't vote for you. That usually doesn't happen.
I bet it would be followed by, but I really like you.
Maybe it would.
You are pretty likable.
Most people will tell you they voted for you, but not too many people are honest enough to tell you they didn't. Having said that, it is a unique office in that you're right. It's an elected position, which it's not in a lot of states. Most states it's not. In Florida it is. It's an elected position. And even more uniquely, it's a partisan race, which means that you run by your party. And it creates a unique environment where, yes, I ran on my party, by my party. But I was very open, and I'm still very open. I think the office, and I wholly believe the office has to be run nonpartisan. We don't have Republican voters and Democratic voters. We have voters.
Right.
And we need to make sure we treat them all the same.
So, Scott, let's talk a little bit more about vote by mail. There's some things happening right now because I just learned that just because I registered last time, that may not necessarily mean I can vote by mail in the next election.
Right. Yeah, so vote by mail, like we talked about, it's been increasing in popularity since 2002 to where now in 2024, 80,000 people voted by mail. In 2020, 100,000 people voted by mail. Now, the law has changed a little bit. A lot of people don't realize it. After that general election, your vote by mail request expires. And if you want to vote again, so January of this year, January of 2025, we went from 100,000 requests down to 0 requests. And so if you want to vote by mail, you've got to make a new request. And so if you make a request today, it'll be good through 26. It'll be good through December of 26. And then on 27, you'll have to make the request again. So
and where do they do that?
They can do it by calling us. They can do it online. They can do it in writing, but there's a specific form you have to use. The easiest way, honestly, is to go to our website, votemanatee.gov. There's a vote by mail button. Click on that, and it'll walk you through. You can do it online, or if you prefer to do it, the more personal way, give us a call 941-741-3823, and we can take your request.
And what's the deadline for that again?
The deadline is 8 days before the election.
Gotcha. Okay.
So you got plenty of time, but don't wait till the end.
And one more thing that just has me curious is just, the comparison of American elections versus international. You think about it, so many positions are elected here. And, what have you learned compared to other countries about how we do elections here?
So in general, we have a lot more elections and we elect a lot more people, even compared to like Canada or the UK or other places have been doing elections a long time. Our ballots are longer. Matter of fact, locally, everybody knows about the school board and the board of county commissioners and even the sheriff and things like that. But did you know that there is a position for mosquito control district? An elected board.
I had no
That's
idea.
An elected position.
That's an elected position.
Wow. So what are they doing in these other countries? Are these just appointments then? Like some of these traditional in America, these traditionally elected positions are just appointments then, or?
Generally speaking, yeah. So they would elect like the top level, and from there they would appoint
administrative.
So
what insights do you take from that?
That we love democracy.
Yeah.
We love the idea that as a electorate, we get to control who governs us at all levels, at president, at state, all the way down to local, and even things that we find important, like we don't like mosquitoes, we're going to elect people to make sure that we, control them.
The right kind of control.
Right.
Oh, and that sound means we have reached our world-famous lightning round. All right, Mr. Scott Farrington, quick answers to the following questions. No recounts, no hanging chads. Are you ready, sir?
I'm ready.
World-famous lightning round. Here we go. If you weren't overseeing elections, what would your dream job be?
Astronaut.
One concrete upgrade that you made for cybersecurity this cycle and why it matters.
The new voting equipment that is going to get delivered next month, and we're going to get implemented in January of 26.
Okay. What metric tells you a precinct is under-resourced before lines form?
The start of lines.
What is the single highest risk point in the ballot chain of custody, and how do you mitigate it?
If you think about where a ballot goes, it either goes to a voter and vote by mail, and that's through the mail, and then they mail it back to us. That's the part that we have no control over and gives me the most heartache. If you think about precincts and polling locations, we transfer it to the polling location. The poll worker breaks seals, makes sure that it's all there, and it's not out of anybody's sight until it comes back to our office that night. So that part of it is very secure. I mean, it isn't. At least two people have eyes on those ballots all the time throughout the day and all the way until they come back to our office.
Gotcha. One election day myth that you wish you could end forever.
That we don't count vote by mail ballots unless it's a close race.
What is the most underrated tool hiding at votemanatee.gov?
Check your status. It's called Check Your Status. You can look yourself up. You can find out if you're registered to vote, what address we have for you, the last time you voted. If you have a vote by mail request, you can make a vote by mail request. It's like your voter portal.
Gotcha. If you could speak directly to every eligible but disengaged voter in Manatee County, what would you say in one sentence?
In most primary elections, only 25% of the voters vote. That means that If you choose not to vote, you're trusting 25% of the population to make those decisions for you. I think that you should be one of the at very least be one of the 25% that gets to make the decision.
Should Election Day be a holiday?
Yes.
And we've got a ballot box bonus question. It's in bold, so I know it's important. Be honest. Have you ever double-checked your own voter registration just to be sure?
Have I double-checked it? Yes.
Yeah?
Yes, absolutely.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Scott Farrington, for pulling back the curtain and helping us understand just how much care, precision goes into everything that you do and protecting the cornerstone of our democracy. If you would like to learn more, learn how to register, check your voter status, check your mail-in ballot, or even volunteer as a poll worker, vote manatee.gov. That's where you'd like for them to go?
Yes, go to votemanatee.gov, and a little bonus, we are getting a new website. The county got a new website recently. We're getting our new website. It will be live sometime in November. I don't know exact date yet, but new website, new look, new branding.
That's awesome. You guys going to do the chat bot too?
Not to start.
Okay, gotcha. I think we rolled it out 2 phases too. Thank you so much again for coming, and thank to your poll workers for us too.
Absolutely.
They're the ones that we see when we get out there when we're bringing our kids. They're the ones with the unlimited amount of energy. It seems, even though voting later in the day, they still maintain to just keep it all together. So
our poll workers are amazing, and absolutely. We call them our gatekeepers to democracy, and quite frankly, you see them more than you see us.
Yeah.
I mean, most voters never take a step into our office, but they see our poll workers.
Well, and it just begs the question: if someone wanted to be a poll worker, how would they find out more?
On our website.
Yep.
See, lots of reasons to go to votemanatee.gov.
That's right. Remember, your vote is your voice, and thanks to Scott and his team, it is a secure one. From the county seat, and on behalf of the men and women doing work that matters behind the scenes for you, I'm Casey Zempel.
I'm Stephanie Garrison.
And I'm Scott Farrington.
Make it a great day to live, work, and play
in Manatee County.
The opinions expressed by guests of Chambers Changes and Conversations do not necessarily reflect those of Manatee County government or its employees.